Well, just to start off with, this is the second year we've been here, and been working with Maria as our coach, Goldratt UK. After experiencing some difficult years, we decided it was time for change. We needed to grow the business, and we're just here today just to present our story, how things have progressed, as well as our challenges. My name is Anthony Hind, Managing Director, BAE Systems.
Russell Rifton, Pre-Construction Manager for BAE Systems. Okay, sorry. You have to excuse me, I'm suffering from a lack of vocals. Can I just start by asking how many people here today were here last year for this event? Because there's a few faces I recognise. Okay. Good. Firstly, just apologise if anything gets repeated that we said last year. And secondly, apologise if we contradict anything we said last year. Because it's not impossible, as everyone that's been doing TOC for a certain amount of time knows that things change, and what you might do one year, you might almost definitely not do another year. So just give a very brief background on who we are. We manufacture and install balustrade systems, handrails, balustrades in glass, stainless steel, aluminium, throughout the UK. And we work on projects inside the construction industry with the revenues up to and maybe just exceeding the £1 million mark. Projected revenue for this year, 6 million. We have 25 full-time staff, plus our subcontract installers who are out on sites for us. 90% of our business is within the London area. It's quite a staggering fact, actually, when you analyse the construction work that's going on in this country. I don't know if anyone else here has any links to construction. Yeah? Does that surprise you, or not?
Yes.
It does surprise you.
Yeah.
It may just be that that's where we're focused. It's where our core market is that we tend to focus on. But we're actually based in Norwich, which is 110 miles from London. Sorry, what was that?
Everywhere, 110 miles from everywhere.
I will take exception to that being Norfolk born and bred.
I'm with you, I'm from Norwich.
Yeah, good, thank you. We've got some support in the audience straight away. So yeah, there is a challenge. What I was really going to say is a challenge of sort of remote working, which obviously comes with that. So over the last year, 18 months, when we started with TOC, we had a fairly clear idea on where we were going as far as what we were trying to deliver and product and market focus, all the rest of it. I'm sorry, Anthony, can you just go back one? I'm sorry.
You were on.
So everyone can. I'm not going to read it out, but there's a few key quotes in there which have probably come from this last 18 months of TOC implementation. Rapid, hassle-free, guaranteed timeline assurances, and delivering project success. So they're the things that, having launched into TOC, they're the things that we've actually been able to add to our market offer and confidently deliver to our customers. So a very big success in that area. So just a few pictures here. This is our office in Norwich, miles from everywhere, as we've just heard. And then the next picture, I think there's a few pictures taken inside the CAD design department where we do a lot of three-dimensional drawings. I guess there's other people here that would do that sort of work in engineering. The next one, picture in the workshop, TIG welding, fabrication. Next is our favourite Norfolk bore, drilling some tubes. And this is a finished product we do. So these balconies you see sticking out of the building here with the glass on, these are the products that we're selling into the industry and installing all day, every day. There's just a few other jobs. Just to give you a very brief overview of what what we actually do. I think there's another one there somewhere. So I think all those jobs you're seeing pictures of are either in London or within spitting distance of London. You can check out our website. Anything else you want to find out about us as a company and product, there's just a link down the bottom there, basystems.co.uk. So that's us as a brief overview. Anthony's now going to give us a resume of our first 12 months of implementation.
12 months, yeah.
Yeah, and how that went.
So as Oded was saying earlier, that when we first heard of TOC, we thought it was just following a rule book and it would all happen. It's not quite like that, actually. The rules are there, but you actually have to work with the rules, apply a lot of logical thinking, common business logic, if you like, based on the rules that are there. So it's been a lot of challenges along the way, but been effective. So just a little bit on the construction industry itself. A lot of uncertainties, unknowns. Nobody can pin down to any dates. Nobody can give you any details, what they want, where they want it. It's an industry of often poor date performance. So often it's almost expected that people aren't going to hit dates, meet the requirements. A lot of changes, last-minute changes, and a large number of different people working on the projects, different hierarchies, different levels of responsibilities, and they often conflict with each other. So a lot of conflict within the industry. A lot of rework and snagging is the biggest issue commonly in the construction industry. It holds up the handover procedures, and often very costly to main contractors, and of course to the subcontractors themselves as well. They have to go back and do the work again. So chaos, and it's traditionally an industry where everybody's trying to achieve local optima. What that means is everybody's trying to be effective in efficient, should we say, in every little area that they're focusing on, without looking at the whole picture. Nobody really understands the complete picture. There's nobody just keeping their eye on a single focus point. So that's the sad facts of the construction industry, and I think anybody who works in that industry, to a greater or lesser degree, will come across some, or if not all, of those problems. So, the history of TOC. In 2011, we first came in touch with it through the video, the short video. We'll just run through those. 2013, we then started making it available to the staff. The audio book was made available. And 2014, we changed a few processes in our factory. We stopped working on everything and tried to narrow down and work on smaller batch quantities. That was just some low-hanging fruit we managed to glean from the book. And in 2015, we then engaged with Goldratt UK at the beginning of 2015, just really feeling the need. We couldn't seem to actually sort it on our own. We needed support. We needed help to actually apply the principles of TOC. So just a little bit of our discoverings in the first 12 months, since March last year, that is. As we said earlier, clients weren't able to agree dates. We were trying to agree dates. We couldn't. So the best thing we could do, in our own belief, was to go out and measure jobs to get them started. Just be there, be in the client's face, and hopefully be able to invoice something and create some profit. The same pressure was being put on us by our clients, who also had the firm belief that if we just got on site and started, things would get finished quicker. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen. Often internally, we're estimating things, or even committing to things, perhaps maybe 6 months, 9 months, 12 months in advance, which were often meaningless because they weren't backed by anything really. always an ongoing challenge was not enough work to actually promote the flow. So not enough sales there in the order book to actually promote the flow of work. I'll come on to that in a minute. When we measured things early, often we picked up errors, obviously, or not sufficient finishings were in place. So we ended up having to try and fit the things that didn't fit, then go back again and remeasure again and do it all over again, and end up running late, of course. One of our before Gold-Rat's engagements, our hot things was KPIs in every single department. So we used to track every single. So you had the guy doing the measuring, and we said, look, you have to measure so many £1,000 worth of balustrades in a week, and if you don't do that, you won't meet your KPI. And then we go to the guys doing the drawing, saying, look, you have to draw so many meters and thousands of pounds worth of balustrade in a week, otherwise you don't hit your KPIs. So nothing was synchronized other than that we gave each of these departments oral goal to meet. So as a result, we often had people going and do their measuring just for the sake of getting their number for the week, or people going and doing the drawing, and they might draw a job that's not going to be started for a year, but they go and draw it and then they hit their KPI and they get a big clap on the Monday morning and everyone's happy. Another problem we've faced, and it's an ongoing challenge to improve, but is because of our challenge in the industry and our issues we had with getting the volume and the flow through the business, we didn't really have a mindset that actually had a belief that we could ever do anything different. So we thought, well, we've got our glass ceiling and that's it. We can't progress. So it was really a really narrow mindset right across the company. Well, I've covered that one already, so next slide. So there were some things we had to shift. We used to focus on the size of the order book, which of course is always relevant, but we purely felt comfort in the fact that if we had a nice big order book, then regardless of when those orders were becoming due, we were healthy, we were in a good state. But we weren't focusing on when the sales was due to be invoiced, when the revenue was actually going to be invoiced. So it was a complete change of thinking. And particularly in our industry, if you get an order, it can take 6 months to be invoiced. It can take 3, it can take 9, sometimes occasionally 8 weeks, but normally there's a period of time which can vary greatly. So the order book value is not that significant for creating the flow of sales. I've covered the KPIs. So what we had to change is our thinking was actually throughput driven, which means we actually had to think of the rate of what we're producing the work and producing the turnover in the company, and focusing on the actual throughput and actual revenue. And I'm sure others will go through that in greater detail and explain what throughput is to those who don't know. Although we reduced the batch sizes in the factory, we hadn't really considered that in any other departments in the business. So we actually had to think differently in terms of our workflow right throughout the whole company and break it down into reasonable, manageable chunks to increase the flow. Lots of programming. We used to do lots of Gantt charts and say we're going to do this by then, detailed planning, a year in advance, and then sadly, didn't work out. But what we realized, an expression that Gold-Rat's brought to us, is can't plan more accurately than the noise. So that's very much the construction industry. Can't think far in advance. You have to have your plan, but just main thing is have your sequence, have your next priority, next priority, next priority. So we introduced Rope Weaver, which broken down into the various stages of flow, and we still are successfully using Rope Weaver as a tool for managing our priorities. We also started looking at our sales pipeline and breaking down the revenue in terms of the output or the particular month in which we were were delivering the work. So we had to do a lot of estimation because it was very difficult to, but we looked at our sales pipeline and broke it down into, so if a job was over 9 months, for example, we broke it down into reasonable chunks over 9 months based on the information we had on when it was due to start. And that changed our thinking dramatically. We also track our sales pipeline weekly, and that's a chart shown there where we're tracking our sales pipeline to see how it's growing, what the changes are in the different stages of activity within the sales as to whether it's becoming an order. We touched on this already, but some of the challenges, believing in the big numbers is always the big thing. Actually believing you can do it, and having the tenacity to actually follow it through. One of the challenges we faced in the early days is keeping the TVC, the truly variable costs, under control. And also keeping the systems up to date and up to speed with growth is always a major challenge, and especially suppliers when growing. And of course, as the flow of orders and turnover has increased, there's a great realization that we need to keep the orders coming in at the same rate. Otherwise, of course, there's nothing there to turn out the door. So that's the end of my little presentation. And after 12 months, we celebrated a significant increase in turnover. We were having a run rate of about 350,000, 300 to 350 a month. And we set this big number of 500, and after 12 months we finally hit this 500 number, which we had always dreamt about and thought we could never achieve. So this is a little celebration I'll have.
Okay, so that was the first 12 months, and then everything changed. So we've just gone through a very long and strenuous exercise, that we've had to say, Andy, to try and plan where we go from here. So we've got this roadmap for the next few months and the few things we're going to be working on. Starting off with a new focus on full kits. Those in manufacturing hopefully know what a full kit is, but synchronization points in the flow. Looking at a new flow model for managing the work on sites better. And the next thing we're going to be working on is a renewed and very strong focus on completing installations, rather than leaving them sitting around with snags on them. And then after that, once we've built this operational excellence, we want to start leveraging it in the marketplace. So we need to be building a Mafia off to take advantage of that. Where we go from here is actually a little bit unusual. Hopefully something will come up on the screen in a minute. Oh, there you go. So we have some project-based environment. So, part of what we do is project-based. Parts manufacture. There's an element of supply chain in it, and there's installation. And there's slightly different disciplines needed for all those within TOC. So I'm going to start, probably just about now. Let's start with a story. About 6 months ago, I think it would be fair to say that we were in a fair amount of turmoil. We'd come a certain distance. We seemed to have plateaued. Jobs were getting late. Customers were getting angry. Internal strife in the team was raising its ugly head again. All things that we thought that we were finished with. And we'd forgotten something. And this is the absolutely key point, I think, as far as we're concerned, of the implementation is don't forget step 5 of the focusing process. And that is if in a previous step the constraint has been broken, you go back to step 1, but beware of inertia. And I think it'd be fair to say that we'd set the just keep going. There's something funny going on here. Sorry about this. Okay, our constraint had moved. We'd set it at design when we first started the implementation, and it had actually moved to completely the other end of the process. It moved from design and it moved to installation. And we were a little bit slow in recognising it. And this is where, well, I said to Andy just now, is where we started going through a fairly long and rigorous process to actually come up with a new procedure to get, obviously, to help us to focus on the sites rather than on the design. And as you can see from that model, it was taking the constraint from one end of the flow right to the other. So it has been quite a major change. What we've realised is that as far as building operational excellence, getting to a point where we can develop a Mafia offer, there's 5 key things that our customers are looking for. Effective synchronisation with other trades, flexibility, reliability, being able to rapidly install, get on site, get off site, finish the job, and not to give the contractors hassle. They're managing multiple contractors, many different trades in a highly conflicted environment. They don't want any more hassle than they've got already. So we recognise that if we can leverage what we're good at, we can deliver this as part of an offer. So where have we got to with this so far? Well, in the first 18 months of the implementation, we had achieved some of these things anyway. We had become very, very flexible. And we have become very, very reliable, apart from those few months where we were letting people down again. The next step, as we said, is rapid installation. So we're now going to be absolutely focusing in on that, because the thing to remember that in our industry, putting somebody on site is extremely expensive. We work on the premise that every hour that we spend working on site costs us 4 times as much as doing it in the workshop. So we need to be getting on and off site as quickly as possible. So we're keeping our TVC in check. And the first tactic for this, the first thing that we've introduced on the strategy and tactics tree, the first box is vigorous full kitting. So I'll just try to summarise what that means here very quickly. As we know, the goal is to make money. And sorry about the 0 where there should be an O there. But when we're dealing with main contractors, we can only charge our clients once we've done an installation. We don't get any money up front. There's no deposits. There's no progress payments per se. You only get paid once you've done the installation. Installation is very difficult to manage. So we want to be absolutely sure that we're only introducing work into the system, into the flow, that has a very, very high chance of being completed and that we can invoice. Two ways of doing that. One is by reducing we talked about reducing batch sizes, and we're reducing the batch sizes of work on site. So when we send a section of work to site, making sure that we don't send 4, 5, 6 weeks of work, putting it on the building site, having the materials go in the scrap bin. This is real, this has happened to us. Cost us thousands of pounds. Only sending to site what can be done in about a week, and then sending another lot the next week. So it might look as though you're reducing your efficiencies. You probably are, but overall you're going to increase your throughput. And the rigorous full kitting is the second main point here, is that making sure that if there's something that can't flow through the system with a good chance of being completed, we don't let it flow, we stop it. And this is quite counterintuitive, because when you have got customers who are demanding a date, something's got to be installed, and you turn around and say, we can't come, we're not going to do it. It does take a bit of guts to do this, but we are proving the benefit of it. After rigorous full kitting, the other thing on the roadmap was what we called the new flow model. I'm not going to go into details of it. It's I think it's very complicated. To those that are well practiced and well versed in TOC, I'm sure it's not. But we've moved from a low touch time buffer to a high touch time buffer. And as far as I understand it, it's basically a bit of a hybrid approach between using drum buffer rope and critical chain. We've got our tasks, the different tasks in the flow are queued up one behind the other, and we have just a single buffer on the end rather than multiple buffers, which is where we were operating. We implemented this 2 weeks ago. The early signs are encouraging. We seem to be getting better control, and hopefully in a year's time we'll be able to say it was definitely the right thing to do. So very quickly, I'll just summarise where we've come in 18 months. We've increased our monthly revenue generation by 2. Effectively, we've doubled from where we were when we first started, from about 250 a month to coming up 500, sometimes nearly 600. We've increased our full-time staff by 2 in the same period. The obvious result of that is there's been a substantial increase in return on sales, which we're very happy about, funnily enough. And that's it.